So, what had happened is I had been accepted to do my research and my PhD at a university in the UK. And I had applied for a bunch of different kinds of funding, and there were like quite a few that still looked really, really good. And it was anticipated that I'd be able to get something because I had never failed in getting funding before. When I was in the UK, even though I didn't get enough to cover my whole studies, I did get at least some money. And it appeared that I was going to get a little bit as well. And then something, to this day, I don't know exactly what happened. Because it was like I had been accepted to get this funding, and then suddenly the funding was gone. So I only found out that I had no money at the end of May of last year, 2015, and I was due to start my PhD in September. Sorry, I hit the mute button by accident. I was due to start my PhD at this other university in the UK in September, and suddenly in May, I realized I have no cash. So this was, for obvious reasons, a major problem. You guys know that I'm Canadian, and right now the Canadian dollar is absolute poop. It's really, really low, and it was last year as well. So the idea of paying 100% out of my own money, my own pocket, a PhD in the UK on the pound, which is pretty much double, if not, or like very, very close to double the Canadian dollar, with no financial assistance. I mean, I guess student loans, but that's a whole different story that I think everyone has a student loans horror story, so I won't get into mine because it's still ongoing. But apart from student loans, having no financial assistance, and paying already double because you're a foreign student and you're not EU, it was just way too much, especially after already having done that for 1 year at Cambridge. So, yeah, I totally panicked, and I started desperately trying to find ways to fund the research. So what you guys saw in that previous video was an attempt to crowdfund the actual research, and I did get some, but not nearly enough, which is to be expected. That was kind of a last-ditch effort sort of thing. It's like, well, you won't know unless you try. So I gave it a try. It didn't work, and that's okay. But also during that time, I had applied for other PhDs, and I had applied for jobs as well. So, one PhD and one job had basically accepted me. And the one job was in California, and then the PhD is in the Netherlands, which is where I am now. And I couldn't do the final interview for the job in California because I needed to give an answer about my PhD beforehand, before I was able to go to the final interview. Sorry, I keep accidentally hitting the mute button. It's at a really inconvenient location. Anyway, so I accepted the PhD, and we moved here because the PhDs as a whole in the Netherlands are fully funded. They're actually a salaried position. So you're essentially being paid as a researcher, and you get benefits and all that good stuff. So the great thing about this PhD is that I was able to carry the exact same research over to my new job. So I'm still able to study trolling is there seems to be a lot of confusion as to what trolling is. For some people, it's anything from flaming, and flaming is basically like a rage-induced reaction to something. Excuse me. So, yeah, if you started like swearing at the person, or apparently in Dutch gaming circles, insulting them with cancer is a thing to do, which is really strange. I guess that's like a cultural thing. I don't know. But yeah, if you start attacking the person verbally, that would be a flame. And then other people say that trolling is fundamentally not hostile, while others say it is. So, like, for example, some people would say that flaming is trolling, and other people would say that flaming and trolling are separate. So, we're kind of, or myself and my supervisors, kind of our first step is just to figure out, okay, what is this? What are we actually dealing with? And right now I'm working mostly in online games because that's where my expertise lies. I'm familiar with a lot of different online gaming genres and specific ones and the terminology that comes with them, so it's easier for people to use game-specific terminology in the interviews that they might not be able to do in other contexts. I mean, I'd like to think I'm not the only researcher looking at this who also plays online games. That seems a bit ludicrous. I'm sure there are others, but it's a nice benefit. And then once we've got a better idea of what's going on here, then maybe we'll move on into other kinds of trolling and locations, like YouTube comment sections, perhaps, and yeah, other things. But I think so far, what I find really interesting about the research that I've done is just how much we imagine trolls to be certain things. Like, we really imagine them to either be like 12-year-old boys who are sitting in their room and then their mom is making lunch for them, or we imagine these like grown men, dirty grown men, eating Doritos in their mother's basement. I don't know why mothers are always associated as well. That seems strange. Maybe that's a cultural phenomenon I need to look into, but that really seems to be like those are the two stereotypes that a lot of people seem to have of who they are. And then I was reading another article, one that I think it was actually published by some Canadians, if I'm not mistaken, but they suggested that trolling was actually a manifestation of everyday sadism. So that makes trolls really sound like their mythological counterparts. So it's like they're just a bunch of like angry men waiting under bridges to catch a victim or something. But that's really not what I'm seeing so far in my interviews and in my research, that a lot of times trolls can be perfectly socially adjusted, educated men and women who are actually quite friendly and are really helpful in the research, to be honest. So I'd like to, I'm hoping that I can get a variety of people to talk to really present a multifaceted perspective of a behavior that has really been stuck in one pigeonhole for a very long time. So it could be interesting either way, and then who knows what kind of applications it'll lead to. I mean, it would be nice if somehow we could discover intentionality or create some kind of like filter. I don't know yet. There's all kinds of ethical implications, but either way, it's a really understudied phenomenon, and it's something that interests me and directly affects me and my family and friends. So I'm enjoying